So it's all to play for still.
I think so. Do you want to bet against us?
Good morning, good afternoon, good night. I don't know what time this podcast is going to go out at. This isn't a live podcast in case anybody is watching it, but this is a pre-recorded podcast. It's a pre-recorded Watford preview. And I'm delighted to have Paddy back. It feels like I haven't spoken to Paddy in an absolute decade. But Paddy is back today. How are you doing, Paddy? How was your travails around the continent last week watching egg chasing?
Watching egg chasing. Well, it was disappointing from the match point of view, and the trip itself was pretty good and pretty eventful, so it was good to get back to some kind of normality. Unfortunately, the normality meant that I watched the first half waiting on my flight to board, and then I boarded the plane while the halftime break was on, and then got to watch the first 5 minutes. And at which point she closed the doors, and I've never been so happy for someone to close the doors of the plane and have to log out of watching Villa, because it was absolutely dreadful. So haven't had the urge to go back and watch the final 40 minutes that I missed, and I don't think I ever will. I think I'll just park it in the back of my mind like I have done with the result and try to move on.
Wasn't it fairly sound of Ryanair though to board while it was half time, just in case the match was anyway decent? Sound, wasn't it? Yeah. Did you have to pay an extra 15 quid for that so that they'd board it during half time or something? No,
I'd say I'd have to pay a lot more if Michael O'Leary knew what I was doing.
Exactly. But you're back safe and sound. You're back all in one piece, and we won't get you to relitigate the Newcastle game. I've spoken about that a lot. And I'll be honest with you, I when I came on from the immediate reaction show afterwards, I didn't know what way I'd go, and I thought it'd be a bit more difficult. And be honest with you, if any of you want to know what my how I sit down and actually, like, everybody talks to themselves, yeah, right? Yeah, okay, we're all agreed on that everybody talks to themselves. But when I'm trying to make a decision, that was just a 30-minute podcast of me just trying to decide whether how the hell I was going to accept that performance. So it was a difficult one to do, but look, we're going to put that in the rearview mirror, and we're going to look towards Watford now. And again,
I arrived back just before you move on. I arrived back into Dublin, and I turned on my phone, and I got the notification that your YouTube went live. So because I was sitting down the back of the plane, I put it on for a couple of minutes, and it just brought me back to 2 years ago when you used to do these on your own. And you had some ranting moments back then.
There was the Southampton game. I never forget. We played Southampton, and I think it was the 4-3. And I lost my rag on that podcast, and I went, I need someone else to be here with me in the podcast. It was after that I knew that I was either going to get into some sort of legal trouble or drive myself absolutely insane if I didn't have somebody to speak to. But but thankfully, look, hopefully it isn't going to be like that going forward. But I will say something. This is a big game for Steven Gerrard, and a big game for the team, because I think equally they both have questions to answer with regards to this. Caveat, we're not saying sack Steven Gerrard. We're not saying sell the team. We're saying something needs to get better, because we've got no maneuverability we can do between now and the end of the season. There's no transfer window. Things are what they're going to be right now. And I think that this team needs... I think there's a mixture of a kick up the arse for some people, and I think there's also a mixture of a change in tactics to get the best out of some people as well needed with this team. And that's what we're going to discuss about this Watford game, because look, we went into the Watford game first day of the season absolutely cocksure, thinking we were going to win the game, and they absolutely handed it to us in the first half. And that was as bad a first half as we've seen. Probably Newcastle was the worst first half we've seen since then. The Arsenal. I think Arsenal after the Wolves game, maybe.
There's been a few.
Yeah. But we can't go into this game cocksure. And if anything, we go into this game, and Watford must be licking their lips saying, yeah, we've got Ismail Assar back, and we're against a team who people are questioning, and the fan base are questioning them. And I don't know whether I'm there yet, but I think it can be fixed. I think anything that's there that can be fixed. I think it was a bad day because the Everton game wasn't that bad.
No, and look, you said there you're not looking to get rid of Steven Gerrard. You're not looking to sell players.
No, we're
but
not.
but there's some players there that are playing for their future, and they need to be a whole lot more on the game than they were last weekend. It was an abject performance, and there's been a few abject performances in there, and there's a few players playing for their place as far as I'm concerned. Whether that's over the next whatever's left, 10, 15 games, whatever it is, I don't know, but they're definitely playing for their future because it's absolutely awful at the moment. So it's time to get out of that. Funnily enough, Watford haven't won a game since November. And that last game they won was against Man United, and it was the last game they had with Ismail Assar in the team. And as Aston Villa just tend to do, they arrive back to play just as we rock up to play them. So it's not going to be easy by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think anybody's anticipating us going and beating them, or beating them well, I should say. But although we should go and get a result, I'm absolutely confident that we should go and get a result. Whether it will happen or not now is another story.
If this team doesn't, I'm going to say it now. If this team doesn't put up a good performance against Watford, I'm going to even go so far as to say if this team doesn't beat Watford at the weekend, with the players that are there, I don't know what Twitter is going to look like.
Well, it's not going to be a nice place, and I don't envisage Villa Park being a nice place tomorrow. I think it's the time that things may turn because people are very, very angry about last weekend, and I think the same performance against a team in the absolute shit as well as Watford are might just turn the fans. You know, I spoke 2 weeks ago about being confident about going to Europe. There's absolutely no way we're going to Europe the way we're playing. Absolutely no way in hell. And we're game 3 into 4 or 5 games that we should be winning, and we haven't won a game yet. So it's time to shit or get off the pot for me, for a lot of players, and you know he needs to sort out that midfield big time.
Yeah. And just before we get on to it, we'll get on to the team, but I need to ask you this question, and feel free to tell me that you don't have an answer. But the fans never turned in, and this isn't the Steven Gerrard, Dean Smith thing. Please, a caveat again, this is not. This question is solely based on if there was murmurings, and do you think the fact that there are murmurings now, is it more that maybe we're not seeing it? I don't even know how I want to ask this question. Is it more that the players that are there should be getting more out of them, and is it a player thing or is it a setup thing, or what do you think it is that might actually be the ire of the fans?
Well, I think the elephant in the room, and I'm going to go back because it's not just this transfer.
I'm uncomfortable even asking this question now, so but I know, go for it.
But the elephant in the room, and it's not just this transfer window that we've just passed. It's the one before. It's the one before. It's the one before. I reckon it's a good 2 years since we spoke about the need for a big midfield enforcer in there. Like I listened to you last weekend, or the Villa View or whatever it was, saying that if we had John Joe Shelby, we'd have won that game. Now, how telling is a comment like that? John Joe Shelby is a poor footballer in my view, but he gets the job done. But Johan Lang has been there for many years. If he hasn't seen this, I don't know where we're at. If Gerrard wasn't prepared to push out the boat and pay the extra for Basuma or whoever it was we were going for in the January transfer window, this could be the rock that he ultimately perishes on. This could be the tournament, and I believe that is the one position that's missing. It's the only one with no replacement for Nakamba. I don't believe Douglas Luiz is strong enough to do the job. Not that I don't believe that Douglas Luiz is a good player. I do think he has something to offer. But that is... Now, don't get me wrong either. Is the Ezri Konsa suspension a problem there? Did he buy Callum Chambers to come in and do that job? We won't know for another couple of weeks until Ezri Konsa is back. But that is a possibility that Callum Chambers is brought in to do that job. So we'll just have to reserve judgment on that for now. But for me, that is the overriding emotion that we have had 4 transfer windows with nothing done about that position. And I know Nakamba came on very well, but we're not going to see him till April or May. So, you know, we had to strengthen in that department. So for me, that's what's really getting me up getting my back up this week, and the thoughts of it is it's only got to be Colin Chambers. I just can't see where else he brought him in for other than to cover at centre half. But if we can't put it up to Newcastle and give the likes of John McGinn the freedom to go and be John McGinn that we know, well then we haven't done him any favours or our club or our team any favours.
And we've been linked to Wilfred and Ndidi, which for me would be a fantastic signing. And I've actually done a piece on him. It's nearly finished. I've the slides done on it last night, and I'm going to release it if we win on Saturday. I don't want to be releasing it and after a loss, but I'm going to pop it out on Sunday or Monday. Because I'm going to record it tonight. Because Wilfred and Ndidi, Basuma, they're big money signings, but they're people who've done it in the league. So I think they understand how much it's needed. I just don't know why they didn't. Maybe look, maybe they couldn't get them in January, and they didn't want to just splash money at a wall, and that's completely okay in my book. Absolutely fine in my book. It's just we need to see someone in there pretty quickly. Without going back and relitigating, because it's been a pretty negative start to the podcast so far, and as you know, we're sunshine and rainbows, and that's
most of the time.
Most of the time, yeah. That's how we operate. But we do have Watford, and I'm still quite confident that this team can be shaken up and that we can go and get a victory at Watford at the weekend. Paddy, looking back, I suppose we're going to look back at the opening day. It's a much changed team. It will be a much changed team from what went out on day one of the season. I think we're looking at it. We won't have Nakamba, which is a negative. We won't have El Ghazi, but that will be he'll be replaced with Coutinho, Bailey, Buendia. We won't have Target, who's been replaced with Digne. We won't have Konza, who will be replaced with Chambers / House, whoever starts in there. And we may have Danny Ings back in the team, who started up top that day when Ollie Watkins was injured. So we have upgraded obviously since day one of the season. But I think the big overarching question is, how does the team set up on Saturday against Watford? He said there's going to be changes. There's going to be changes. So
yeah. The easiest one for me is the change up top. We will see Danny Ings play. I would be absolutely dumbstruck if we're sitting on the team sheet tantrum tomorrow and Danny Ings isn't named in the team. I just can't see how he can justify playing Ollie Watkins after two very poor. I wouldn't even say mediocre. Mediocre was the one I had. I just thought he was very poor the last couple of games. So that's the obvious change. And your guess is as good as mine to what he's going to do with that midfield. I have my ideas of what I would like to do, but we can't continue with the flatness of those three players and nobody actually doing the aggressive work, let's say. So something has to change there. It has to be tomorrow, and I honestly don't know whether Morgan Sanson is the answer. I think Callum Chambers might be the answer in a couple of weeks, but he has to deal with tomorrow first. And is it put one of the young lads in there? Probably not. But whatever he does, he's going to have to make a decision, and it's going to be a tough one.
The Watford midfield. So midfield is the question mark, I think, for everybody. What's going to happen there? When everybody looks at it, you go, there's going to be changes in there, but what changes, we don't know. Everybody's talking, maybe Sanson comes in. I personally think there's going to be a tweak in formation, which we'll talk about in a moment. And I think that formation needs to be tweaked because if we remember when we go back to day one, they had Kuchka, Cleverly, Sissoko was their midfield three, and they absolutely battered us. Like Nakamba was actually really poor day one. There's a podcast out where I highlighted that the three goals, I think two of the three goals came from woeful positioning from Nakamba that day. That's not to say I wouldn't love Nakamba in the midfield. No, I really would. He came back afterwards, played really well under Gerrard, played actually really well under Smith as well in I think one game when he played. But it's not a negative in Nakamba. But what I'm talking about is their midfield are strong. They've also got that guy Louza, who potentially will be in there as well. And like Sissoko, 33, I'm going to say. Same with Cleverly. Kuchka, 34. I think he's older again. So they're older type players, but they were in there and they really made our midfield look very, very, very passive. So with that in mind, and they're not going to change that, with that in mind, and the fact that we're going to have Ismail Assar, probably Josh King to deal with, along with the free scoring Dennis up top, I'm all okay to go back to the 4-2-3-1 system. And I think we've got the players to do it.
And who's the two, Neil? That's the $6 million question.
I think you have to move McGinn back there, and I think you have to play McGinn and Sanson, McGinn and Louise. I personally think Sanson's going to come into the team, and I think he's going to come in for Douglas Louise. Oh, look, he could come in for McGinn. McGinn was hooked the last day. McGinn hasn't exactly tore up trees, in the last 2 or 3 weeks either. So maybe McGinn doesn't start. I would be very, very surprised if McGinn didn't start. But I think you have to play.
I would too. And in fairness to McGinn, I think he's been hamstrung by the formation that we're playing.
I think so.
So that's why I'm reluctant to. And like McGinn is my favorite player in the squad of all the players we have. So
mine too.
I'm absolutely not having a go at him. He has been poor, but I think he's a victim of the situation we find ourselves in with who's available.
And the reason I think, and I know, look, I said on Twitter today, and there's been really valid points. Why would you play 2 6s against Watford? And I think for me, the reason I would play 2 6s against Watford is because I'm just sick of the team being caught in the break. I'm sick of the team being caught straight down through the middle. Straight balls down the middle and stuff like that can catch us out too. And when we play our fullbacks so high up the field, and we've got 2 10s, do we really need 2 8s and 2 10s? To me, that doesn't really make much sense, specifically if our fullbacks are going to fly up and down the field and create the width. So are we really just kind of clogging up our areas if that is the case? Now, I'm okay maybe with playing the 2 10s and not even going with but if you do play the 2 10s, you kind of need to play. I think you need to go back to 2 6s and then need to sit, because a lot of the time McGinn and Ramsey are covering in for the fullbacks anyway. But if we just leave them home in a defensive midfielder kind of position, is it the best use of McGinn? No, but we just spoke about it. We don't have that defensive midfielder. Is it the best use of Sanson? No. Is it the best use of Douglas Luiz? No. We don't have a defensive midfielder to sit in there. And if you don't have a defensive midfielder, maybe playing 2 midfielders to cover that ground. And both of those guys, you can never fault Sanson and McGinn for not getting around the field. And they'll cover ground in there. And maybe if they were deployed back a small bit further with Jacob Ramsey in the 8th position, and then Coutinho, Buendia in the 10s behind Ings, and then you could still allow your fullbacks to get forward. To me, it just makes more sense, because I can't continue to square the circle of playing 1-6 or not even 1-6, playing 3 is flat across the middle, exposing your 2 centre halves, and then having two of those midfielders to get back into the fullback positions when Digne and Cash go right to the byline. Both of them do. So I just can't square that circle. For me, that's 1990s football, where the fullbacks go right to the byline all the time, and we get people on the edge of the box. I think we need to be a small bit more cuter about it. And maybe we're not playing the flat midfield. Maybe we're not supposed to be. Maybe it goes back to the leadership.
Possibly.
We need a leader in there to say, stay back. You got to stay back. You to marshal that defense. I don't know. But for me, I think we can still score goals without having 2 8s in the team. And even in playing 2 6s as opposed to 2 8s, because I don't think they contribute in the goal scoring anyway.
Okay. Well, look, I think there's going to be casualties tomorrow. And unfortunately, I think that casualty is going to be Jacob Ramsey. I think in my head, if I was to change up that team,
it's ballsy one, Paddy.
Yeah, well, just wait and see now. What I would do if I was picking the team tomorrow, because it's Watford and because that midfield is so compact, is I would force them back. I'd play the 2 8s, be that McGinn, Luis, Sanson, whatever it is, in there. Probably I'd pick Luis and McGinn, and then I would play Bailey in the left side. I would play Buendia on the right and Coutinho through the middle, just to give us that something different. And then in behind, Danny Ings, who's up playing off the shoulder of the last man. That's how I would change it up this week. I don't believe Gerrard changes anything too much. I think he has a system. I think the last couple of weeks have been blips in where he sent the players out to play his system, and we just penned back and we couldn't play it. That's what I'm hoping is the case. And the work has been done this week to change that, but who knows?
That was my thoughts as well, except maybe I thought Sanson might come in from McGinn. It's an interesting one. There will be uproar if Ramsey is dropped. But
I think there will.
He's a 20-year-old kid as well, though.
But the uproar will be short-lived if we go and win 3 or 4-0, or even win the game. All we need to do is stop the rot tomorrow and get 3 points on the board. So
you could still play. I don't think he starts Bailey. I just don't. I think they're going to nurse Bailey in with 20 minutes here, 20 minutes there, kind of like Newcastle are doing with Bruno Guimaraes. But I think what they might do is they might play McGinn, Sanson, McGinn, Louise, bit further deep. Play Ramsey as that central 8, and then Coutinho, Buendia then as the 2 10s and Ings up top. So a variation on what you said, absolutely. But I think for the sake of and then you bring Bailey on. Now, if Bailey was 3 or 4 weeks into his return to play and had done 90 minutes previously, I think maybe they might start Bailey, or he might be in the option. Bertrand Traore is back in the running of things. He potentially might even be on the bench this weekend, potentially. The only 2 players we're definitely going to be without are Marvelous Nakamba and Ezri Konsa. So we've got a full deck to shuffle from. It's just how do we shuffle the deck? And the problem is, Paddy, that the problem areas that we have are the areas where we don't have anyone to shuffle in or shuffle out. So it's just one of those things. And the squad building is under scrutiny. The building of the squad, the distribution of assets towards certain areas is under scrutiny at the moment, and that will continue to be under scrutiny. But what I was trying to say at the start is there's nothing we can do about it now until the 1st of July.
Yeah.
So
and that's the annoying part for me. So it's a case of do we trust Callum Chambers to do that job? Do we bring in young Tim to do that job? Well, I think that's got to be the next step. I think we draw a line under the season. We're safe. I think it's a case of planning for the future, and if that means bringing in young Tim to do that job, if they have him on the bench, they obviously think he's capable of it. So why is he sitting on the bench and not getting a run if it's not working? That's a bug.
Yeah, but I think a lot of, like we said there, do you play Callum Chambers as a 6? I think you kind of take the safer option if you play 2 6s. You think you take the safer option, and the reason, as I said before, the reason you do it is you've got 2 people covering the area, and like it's not a case of Callum Chambers comes in, he plays one great game, then he has a rick out of nowhere, and everyone's gone, fuck it, we can't play Callum Chambers defensive midfielder anymore. You know, I prefer to be sure and put 2 people back there and distribute the work between the 2 of them, because I think a lot of the time against Newcastle we got in each other's way. The 8s were on top of the 10s because they were too far forward, and it stifled Coutinho, and that's what made John Joe Shelby look like an absolute world beater. He was just able to just hold his ground because he was there. Right, I'm not going out to the left or the right because they're packing. They're like you had Digne, you had Ramsey, and you Coutinho at times all out on the left hand side, passing the ball amongst each other in the space of 4 or 5 yards. That Newcastle were grand. They were 1-0 up at that stage. They didn't care. They passed the ball away out there between 3 of you, because that means we've got all the people in the world back, and you're just going to try and cross the ball into the box, and we have everyone back here to defend it. So for me, the reason that we were passing the ball around in those short areas was because we were compacting the midfield, not Newcastle. We were compacting the midfield. So if you push 2 people back and create that little avenue, and yes, we will concede ball in the middle of midfield, but we'll concede ball in the middle of midfield while having 2 extra players, or at least 1 extra player back there to help in defence so that we're not overrun, and don't see Matty Cash having to bust a gut to absolutely sprint back as fast as he can. Let him go forward, and same with Digne. So if we want to have our width from the 2 fullbacks, we need to give the 2 centre halves a small bit more protection, I think. But, you know, I don't think that's lost on Steven Gerrard and Michael Beale. I don't think the fact that midfield is a problem area is lost on them. If it is, we're in trouble, but I don't think that is the case. And I think that we're ponderous in attack. And when we played against Leeds, we were quick in attack. That's why we got the goals. When we broke quickly and were efficient with the ball, things were great. But we're ponderous in attack because we've got so many people open around there. And it's almost, at the moment, it's like as if Digne or Cash have to touch the ball before we're allowed to start an attack. And that ain't good, because that's predictable.
No, and it is predictable. And the balls we're playing are quite predictable. You know, it's either fizzed in behind which isn't getting there in behind the back two, or it's pulled back from the end line, which has been, we've seen the fruits of that labour in the last few
I like
weeks,
that.
especially the goal that Coutinho scored
Coutinho got,
against Leeds, was it? Yeah.
Yeah.
But look, we need a bit more variation. I like the look of Dean going forward. He seems like he's able to put a ball where it needs to be put. Cash, on the other hand, needs a whole lot more work in that department. I don't envisage any changes anywhere else. I think we're just looking at that midfield three and how they're going to change it up. And I do think it'll be Danny Ings for sure.
Yeah, I think so. Like this has been a bit of a. There's been more questions asked, I think, here than looking forward, and that's why I like doing the team sheet tantrum, because we can devote a preview to asking the questions and maybe trying to formulate thought processes and stuff like that around it. This podcast may have come across as negative to some people, but I think what this is like we're writing down our pre-work, I suppose, for the team sheet tantrum. If you guys are just all listening to it, and well, that's what it was for me anyway. And that's why I was asking some questions.
We're perfectly okay to be negative,
asking as well, because I don't fully believe. I don't think Villa Park will turn. I don't think we're there. I don't want to see it happen. I fucking hate it. I hate it when stuff like that happens. I'm the most unconfrontational man in the world, and even a bit of booing in a stadium makes me feel nervous. So I want, and as I say, but I think this team is better than what we're seeing at the moment. So I think the questions needed to be asked. This team is better than what we saw at Newcastle.
I think we're perfectly entitled to be a little bit negative today after the couple of results that we had.
Well, I think Leeds was a good performance with stupid goals given away. I think that's the difference. Newcastle was a poor performance.
It was just poor performance all around the pitch.
Yeah,
even down to go back to Emmy conceding the goal. It's poor, but I think we're perfectly entitled to be a little bit down on them. I think Villa Park could change very quickly. I think you could hear the groans. You know, the fans started off very well in St. James's Park. You know, I watched the match on my phone. I could hear them, but it went very quiet. Went very quiet very quickly, from what I could hear. But I can hear groans tomorrow until we get going. I think it's vital for Stephen Gerrard to get 3 points tomorrow. I don't care how they come. I really don't. If we're on the back foot for 90 minutes, yet we score, and the only goal of the game, that's fine. I just think we need to stop the rot. I think that is the most important thing tomorrow. Obviously, I'd love to see a performance, but I think stop the rot and then build on the performance afterwards.
Paddy, an interesting one. Who do you think is the taller team between Watford and Aston Villa? I've given away the answer now.
It has to be Watford, is it?
No, it's Aston Villa. Go figure. Coutinho, Buendia, Sanson and McGinn in midfield.
And still taller.
Team. I don't understand it. That's what I'm seeing here and who scored. Average height, Aston Villa, 182.1 centimetres. Average height, Watford, 181.3 centimetres.
Well, the difference isn't much to talk about, in fairness.
Insert inappropriate joke here. You know, but no, it's one of those games. We have to give Watford all the respect in the world because we didn't do it in opening day and see where that got us.
Exactly.
Or maybe we did give them too much respect in midfield, and that's where it got us. Maybe we've to give them less respect. Maybe we've to get in there and, you know, and get physical. And I like, we see some thunderous tackles from our two fullbacks, but we see the contained defense type of press from our midfield, whereby we just want to get in around them, protect certain areas of the field, try to shepherd them into other areas. But when that doesn't work, we see situations like the start of the Leeds game when Dan James tore us asunder for the first 20 minutes, and then Coutinho came into it. So that's why I think the 2-6s are there. That's why I think we need the 2-6s there, because we need a speed bump before people get to our two centre halves, because we just do. Like, I don't think we need to go into massive explanation as to why we need it, but we need them. If our full backs are going to be double jabbing up the top of the field, We just need that speed bump in middle of midfield, and you can't just have one there. But specifically, if they're going to be dragged left and right and left and right, and if you've got two midfielders filling in for the two fullbacks, why not have those as a 6 and an 8? When one goes forward, you still have one in midfield. Sorry, why don't you have them 2 6s as opposed to 2 8s? Why don't you have one in midfield and then one minds the house in the middle of the field? It's I'm oversimplifying it. I 100% know I'm oversimplifying it. I know it won't be to everybody's taste, what I'm saying here. No. But I think the changes we will see will be more formational than massive personnel changes out there in the field tomorrow. I think that's where I'm getting at, because this whole podcast was in around what will change based on Steven Gerrard saying there will be changes.
And I think the logic in what I was saying with regards to playing the three in behind Danny Ings is that it takes the absolute pressure off them against a team whose backs are against the wall. I think we got to put their backs against the wall further and be up against them from the start. And I think the best way to do that is have those three players in the team. If Bailey has to come off after 50 minutes, so be it. But I just think that would be enough to frighten them and keep them defensively sound.
Here's one for you, Paddy. Just on Bailey. Since Bailey's joined the club, have we ever seen a performance from him from a game where he started? But then again, he started so very few.
The only one that sticks out as performance-wise was Everton.
Yeah.
Really.
And he came on.
And he came on and he went off again.
He went off.
You know, but like if this guy is fit, I think he should be starting. If you're telling me he can only play well off the bench, I think we've signed a dud. He has to be able to go and put this about from the start, and that has to be the goal for us. So if he's fit and ready, pigeonhole him in there somewhere and put Watford on the back front or the back foot. That's my opinion on it now. Brain isn't working totally at this hour of the morning, Neil, but sure, I'm getting there.
I know. Tell me about it. I think that's going to do it for today, guys, because as I say, this has been more of a conversation than a preview more so than anything else. We didn't really even talk about Watford, and I think that's because like the big news for them is Ismaila Sarr is going to be back, and that while they've got some injuries, big news is Ismaila Sarr is back because of what he did to us last year. He is going to be, at the start of the season, he is going to be up against Luca Dean, and at my target. Whether that makes any difference or not, we will see on Saturday. But I think this is going to be a good game. As I say, I think there's a lot of spotlights in Aston Villa for this game. And I hope, and I would be 60% to 65% certain based on what we know now without knowing the team sheet, that Aston Villa will rise to the challenge and come out victorious against Watford. So with that, guys, we're going to put a bow on this one. Thanks so much for everything you do, as I say, and we will be back with a team sheet tantrum on Saturday at 10 minutes to normal time. So that's 1:50 for anybody who uses digital watch. So we will be back with a team sheet tantrum then. And I suppose until then, stay safe, and all that's left to say is up the Villa.
Up the Villa.